Mendocino County Local Agency for Information Commission. And Clerk Meadows, would you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, good morning. Commissioner Orth,
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio, Commissioner Ward,
Here.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Here.
Commissioner Roden,
Here.
Commissioner McGorty,
Here.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Here.
Commissioner Winkle, Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Haschak. Thank you. Staff also present is our analyst, Larkin Filer, our executive officer, Uma Hinman, and our legal counsel, Ms. Marcia Birch. And I'm not quite sure who would seat for Commissioner Ignacio if Commissioner Gonzalez is not here.
At this point, that is the only alternate for city. So when he comes in, he'll be immediately seated. Hopefully we will see him a little later.
Okay, and Commissioner Winkle is here.
And we do have a quorum. Yes, we do. So we can move forward. And our first item of action actually is to, I'm looking for a motion for the continuing resolution on AB 361, remote teleconference action.
So move.
Seconded, Frohnberger.
Is there any discussion by commissioners? Yes, Mr. Ward.
Can we get another update when we're going to be there? It's almost summer now, so getting, everything's going back to normal in the world. I don't know why we can't go back to normal and meeting in person.
So I just want to let you know that we've been advised by county staff not to have an in-person board meeting tomorrow and Wednesday because there's a surge in infections. So there's still a lot of concern. I agree with you. I really want to see things go back to normal and have our lives sort of uninterrupted, but we're still on kind of in this weird transition between pandemic, endemic, and I think a lot of folks are being cautionary about it, including me, because I have a compromised immune system. So that's kind of where we're at.
I also have noted the masking request by health authorities for Mendocino County for in-room meetings. Commissioner Frohnberger.
Yes, thank you. Would it be possible for us to find a secondary meeting room at some point? Because this is, nearly all of my meetings have gone back to a face-to-face style meeting. And I've honestly, I don't know, with the exception of a couple people here, I don't think that I've ever seen any of you in person. And this is getting honestly a little tedious. And as you all know, my statements in the past, I do not agree with this type of meeting, and then I don't think that it's inclusive, and I don't think it's helpful for our process. So if anybody knows of another space that we could use interim until the county is willing to move forward, I think that we might want to consider that.
Part of being inclusive is the fact these meetings are recorded by the county and then provided on YouTube as a record of the meeting. So that is also a consideration, but I'll open it for discussion for other commissioners. I started my chairmanship even prior to in asking the supervisor commissioners, who were the officers of LAFCO, to pay attention to public health warnings, and the public health officers. Also, the county has control of the meeting room as well as listening to those health officers within reason. I'm sorry that we have not been able to meet in person, but at the same time, I'm also immune compromised and have to regard my own personal health as well. And I've actually seen more people getting COVID in the last 6 months that I've personally known than I've ever seen throughout this pandemic. So I have personal concerns. Further comments? Then there is a motion. Go ahead and call the roll, please, Clerk Meadows.
Okay. Commissioner Fronberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes, and thank you. And we are doing more hybrid meetings with the OWL. I hope in the future that will actually be, when we do go back to personal meetings, that will continue with web-based participation as well. I think it's actually brings forward more participation. Yes, Commissioner Mari Roden.
Commissioner Maria. I was just going to say that at the city council chambers for Ukiah, we've been doing hybrid meetings, and it's an open, airy place. It's possible if the commission chooses to look at moving meetings back there again, or even temporarily. And then those who want to participate in person could, and those who want, I also am immune compromised. I might participate in a meeting there with a mask. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there for consideration in the future.
Thank you for that, and we'll ask our executive officer to look into that. The fact they're holding hybrid meetings would allow those who are compromised to participate as we do now, but also allow face-to-face. So that could be a bonus. And go ahead, Commissioner McGorty.
So Mari, would we be able to fit all of our crowd in there?
Yeah, we used to have the LAFCO meetings in the city council chambers. So we just add more chairs and so on. I don't remember even why we moved them to the county, but they had traditionally for a long time been in the city council chambers.
Yeah. Well, at some point we have to recognize the fact that this disease is not going away, and we do have to get on with our lives. I guess the question is, at what point is it considered safe? And I think what you can watch is the infection rates give you a really good hint as to where we are. Just like with the flu, we typically only the very immune compromised worry about that, but most of us get flu shots, and now I think some people will wear masks as they do in Asia to try to avoid it. So I think we should probably have a review before the next meeting and kind of take a look with the public health officer where we are with infection rates and make a decision.
And I will just pipe in and say the city began to raise the cost of meeting at the city chambers, and I believe that's what brought forward our going to the county, as well as because MCOG also met at the county offices. It just became the fact that there were two countywide operations that needed to be recorded and come under commonality for public participation, I think was the issue. But however, I think I never had any problems meeting in the city chambers. It's a good location. Any further discussion? I see that Jerry Gonzalez is here and you are seated as a city rep today. So thank you for coming. And with that, we'll move on to public expression. But first, E.O. Hinman, would you please describe the manner of public participation before we open to public expression?
Thank you, Chair Orr. To provide comments, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. For those accessing from a computer, tablet, or smartphone, the raise hand function may be selected by clicking or tapping it from the reactions options. When joining the Zoom meeting, please enter your name or speak your name so that you can be identified to speak. For those utilizing the telephone option, which is audio only, please use the raise hand feature by pressing *9 on your keypad to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. When it is your turn to speak, you will be called on by the last 4 digits of your phone number, if available, and asked to identify yourself for the record.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll open to public expression. Please raise your hand or make note that you wish to speak at this time on any item not on today's agenda, as well as you can be limited a 3-minute limit for speaking before the commission today under public expression. And public expression is open. Do we have anyone in the waiting room that is raising their hand?
No one is in the waiting room.
Okay, looking for any hand raises in the Zoom. We'll wait 10 seconds. Thank you all for coming today. We see no public expression. So we'll move forward to the consent calendar, item 4 on our agenda today. Do any commissioners wish to ask a question or pull an item from today's consent calendar? I'm seeing no hands raised. Then I'll look for a motion to approve today's consent calendar, 4A
Gonzalez
and
moves.
4B.
Gonzalez moves.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion, any member of the public wishing to speak to our consent calendar today, please raise your hand. There is a time delay, so I always wait just a little bit here. I'm seeing no raised hands, so go ahead with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
thank you, Clerk Meadows. With that, we move to our public hearing items. Our first item for public hearing is the County Service Area Number 3 Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study. And at 9:12, I'll open the public hearing and turn it over to E.O. Hinman for our opening.
Thank you, Chair Orth. Our analyst, Larkin Filer, will be presenting this item, so I will relay this to her.
Thank
Okay.
you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to share my screen. And just let me know when you can see it.
We can
Okay,
see it.
thank you. So this public hearing is to consider the County Service Area Number 3 Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study. The Commission held a workshop on this study at the April 4th meeting to hear public comments and provide direction on revisions to the study in preparation for this public hearing item. The staff report for this item starts on page 24 of the packet. As background, CSA 3 was formed in 1974 to provide ambulance services to the City of Point Arena area, which was subsequently served by the Coast Life Support District in 1986. In 1985, the district's boundaries were expanded from the original South Coast area to cover all the unincorporated areas of Mendocino County. In 1991, the County Board of Supervisors created CSA 3 Zone of Benefit and Benefit Assessment for the Sunel Valley area for fire protection and prevention services, which was subsequently served by the Hopland Fire Protection District in 1997. CSA 3 has a longstanding inactive district, and this is the first MSR SOI study prepared for this county dependent district. CSA 3 does not currently provide any services and has no facilities, equipment, infrastructure, personnel, or reoccurring revenue. The county is working on providing district services through a LAFCO activation of latent powers application, which would allow for the establishment of zones of benefit as a funding mechanism to provide additional services to various areas of the county. On page 25 of the packet is a list of revisions made to the study since the workshop in April. To highlight one change requested by the Commission, staff added MSR determination number 11, recommending that county staff provide the Commission an annual progress report on CSA3 activities and plans, instead of developing a long-term plan on adding specific powers and providing services to specific areas for CSA3. This is because it's currently unclear whether CSA3 will provide an efficient and practical way for addressing county goals and community needs. I also want to note that there is an existing MSR determination 26 that addresses the long history of CSA3 inactivity and recommends that if the district does not activate latent powers within 5 years of adoption of this study, the Commission can consider initiating dissolution proceedings. And I also want to note that this recommendation 26 does not limit the ability of the Commission to initiate dissolution proceedings sooner as provided by applicable laws. I also want to note that since this is the first study for the district, there's no record of an existing SOI. And so this study will actually establish the SOI instead of update the district's SOI. The study does recommend that the Commission establish a service-specific sphere of influence for CSA3 that is limited to the future Sherwood Firewise Community Zone of Benefit for road maintenance of emergency access routes. And I will go ahead and show on the upper part of the screen here in the red color is the zone of benefit area proposed for the Sherwood Firewise community. In addition to the sphere of influence for the Sherwood zone of benefit, the study also recommends an area of interest for enhanced interagency coordination for the Ukiah Eastern Hills area, which is shown on the lower portion of the screen in the green boundary. And this would also be for emergency access route purposes. And then the study also recommends an area of interest for fire service gap areas and water service gap areas. And those are shown on the next two images. The red area are the gaps, which will be the area of interest, and the green areas are existing fire service provider agencies. And then additionally, there's also an area of interest proposed for gaps between water service providers. And again, the red area identifies the gaps and the green areas identify existing water service providers. And both for water and fire, these are local government agencies. They do not reflect private providers. I also want to note that in working with county staff, we've recently learned that there may be some errors in the CSA3 mapping related to areas of overlap with the cities caused by annexations without detachments over the years. We do need to determine whether there are old statutes that automated the concurrent detachment process for CSAs during city annexations in the past. Although the statutes no longer exist, they would have been in effect at the time that those annexations occurred. Therefore, in order to allow staff time to clarify the mapping issues, staff recommends that the Commission continue this public hearing to the July 11th meeting at 9 a.m. or soon thereafter, and held either remotely or in person as identified on the meeting agenda posted at least 72 hours in advance. I also want to acknowledge that county staff is present today to assist in answering questions, and that is Howard Dashiell, the Director of the Department of Transportation. And that does conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, I'll open it to commissioners for questions, and Commissioner McGorty, please.
Uma, so, another area that needs to be funded long-term is the Ukiah Valley Basin Sustainable Groundwater Agency, and I'm wondering if our CSA3 process could be used for that.
Larkin, did you want to respond?
Certainly. That is something that we could look into further. I certainly, it is something if you feel it's best to amend the water service gap area of interest mapping, we could do that, or just identify it further in the narrative of the study. I'm not sure what you would feel would be best in capturing that.
So it's been well delineated. We've submitted a plan to Department of Water Resources for managing the Ukiah Valley Basin to be sure that we have a sustainable yield of water out of it. And you know, we're trying to figure out long term how to fund it. At the moment, we've been kind of limping along with some of the members as a Joint Powers Authority. So I don't know if the fact that it's a JPA makes this impossible, or whether it could still be funded.
That is a very good question. I'm happy to look into that more if we are able to continue the hearing to July, and we could better address that in the study just to make sure that we're laying the groundwork that's necessary. I don't know that a JPA is necessarily problematic. LAFCO does not really have purview over JPAs, but when it does come to activating a power, that is something that we would consider through that application process. So I agree. I think that's a very valid thing to address in our study.
Thank you.
And I would make a comment first, and then I'll go to you, Commissioner Roden. My comment would be that in general, CSAs are a county tool available to the County of Mendocino to develop areas of benefit for the purposes of a power that you applied to LAFCO to activate. And I believe that this whole exercise is showing you a tool that the County Board of Supervisors has available to it. Doesn't need to be CSA number 3. You can actually set up an area of benefit and go through formation of a dedicated CSA dependent district to provide that benefit. Is that correct, staff?
That is correct. There are multiple opportunities to move forward with providing services. So I think that really points out the reason why we were not able to return with a plan for how service provision will roll out for CSA3, because there's just still so many things, very many moving parts, and still pretty early in the process of trying to determine how to reactivate this district to provide services. But yes, there are multiple options for moving forward.
And let's go ahead, Commissioner Roden.
Thank you. I had a question, but I want to ask Commissioner McGorty first, something in response to his comment, if that's okay, and then go to my question. And you know a lot more about this, Glenn, than I do, but you know, we're going to get to it later on our agenda, but the State Water Resources Control Board apparently has funding around, you know, consolidations of districts to, you know, to, in light of the drought, and to be real as efficient as possible in use of water resources. And so isn't that a possible source of funding for implementing the recommendations in the groundwater sustainability plan?
It is, and we're applying for those grants, but
Okay.
they typically don't want to fund ongoing expenses like a staff. That's not something that they want to do. They feel that's supposed to be generated by the local government, or whatever format the groundwater sustainability agencies are using. So you know, we're investigating things like parcel taxes, and this just seems like another possible mechanism for us to use.
Yeah, I haven't even seen what the recommended, you know, actions are that need funding. So, I mean, that's another story, and I'll look into that, you know, outside of the
I can
meeting.
tell you just a real thumbnail sketch. It's about ongoing somewhere between 150 to 250,000, with most of the tasks task being monitoring all of the water levels that are in the well, so we get the elevations of them. And then we also have to do a management plans, and there's a desire to improve some of our capability of storing water in the ground, and that's one of the things that we hope to do, because building reservoirs is expensive. Storing things in the ground means you open up the river when it's flooding and let it flood across the land, which, if you're in the right place, that can work extremely well.
And again, Mari, before your question, a CSA formation for a specific purpose and benefit is available to the Board of Supervisors to overlay an area of service. And I think that this exercise demonstrates that the board does have a way to go for parcel assessments to benefit a given area. And with that, you have a question, Mari, still?
Yeah,
A
this is
comment?
for staff. I'm just curious about how this works. On page 50 of 128 in the draft, under finances, and it under current fiscal health, that the CSA 3 has been inactive, and we all know that. But then the next paragraph of the sentence says it's unclear whether CSA 3 complies and submits financial transaction reports to the state controller's office within 7 months after the close of the fiscal year, as required by this government code. And I'm curious, did you try to contact the county to find out if they're compliant with that government code?
Yes, that is a good question. We did, in working with county staff, try to get that information from the county auditor's office, but we're not able to get a response. And, we may be able to look into that more if the hearing is continued and get a more clear picture of that. We did try to find the answer to that question. We were not able to get a determination, but we did want to at least acknowledge it in the study, because again, it's such a new district, they may not even necessarily need to be complying with this requirement at this time, just because they're not providing services, but we
Okay.
did want to identify it so that it doesn't get missed in the future.
Yeah, I think that would be good to know. I mean, it's probably not significant, but if this CSA is reactivated for the Brook Trails and Sherwood Road area, we'd want to make sure that the county's on top of it and doing their reporting.
Absolutely, that's a
so-
very good point.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that was it for me. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Fonberger, then Ward.
I'll yield to Ward and speak after.
Okay.
Yeah, to tack on to what Mari was bringing up, there was approximately $50,000 that the board put forward to activate the CS3. Maybe an understanding of what that money was used for, since there aren't any financial statements to look at. Where'd the money go? The other questions I had is, the CSAs are intended to be for smaller geographical areas. Why are we doing it for the whole county? Why can't we just do CSAs for specific areas? In addition, as a commissioner for a long time, this is sort of like the cart before the horse, in the sense that we don't have any powers or anything to look at. We're doing an MSR on something that doesn't really even exist. So it's a little confusing to me to read through this when there's no budgets, there's no services, there's nothing really to look at. And so those are the concerns I had. But I also wanted to know, regarding the Sherwood Road, what happens if there's no, for the zone of benefit, there's a problem with 218 and it doesn't get funded? Well, what happens to it? Another question would be, why hasn't the Sherwood Valley Road been already implemented if it's been discussed for years? I know there's no funding, but the county, it is a dependent district. Why can't the county look into providing that service? It's something that's been needed for as long as I can remember. So anyway, it's just a little confusing to read about all this on a MSR SOI when we don't even have anything to to really look at. Same thing with regard to the Ukiah Eastern Hills. We don't even have that described, and yet we're looking at it as a zone of benefit as well. So anyway, those are just some of my questions. I don't necessarily need to have them answered today, but maybe at the next meeting we could have a little better understanding of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Fornberger, then McCourty.
Real quick, Mr. McGorty, did you have a direct response to Mr. Ward's statements?
Well, I was going to ask that Howard Dashiell talk a little about this because he's probably the most knowledgeable of anybody on the call of what's been transpiring in the two locations. So I don't know, Howard, are you with us?
You bet. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Howard.
So roughly the money that the board has appropriated to have my department try to look at emergency access road maintenance in the Brook Trails area, the quote unquote, a pilot project for Brook Trails Firewise has come from the county general fund. It's been tracked by my normal accounting software. I could print you a report that would stand up with any of the agencies I spend money and report to. That would be bulletproof. So yeah, I can tell you where the $50,000-$60,000 is gone. Mostly my staff and a consultant trying to develop the project in Brook Trails. The East Hills project right now, it's the same thing. We've spent a little bit of money and staff time and right now to develop an application with CAL FIRE for more funds to do studies, which by the way, is how the initial work in the Brook Trails areas was done. The Firewise Council had a CAL FIRE grant that paid for most of that. So it's all quite accountable, folks.
I would just like to add to that, there's discussions with some of the property owners there that are interested in working with us. They want to secure public access into some of the county roads in exchange for emergency routes. So there are talks undergoing, and they're kind of waiting for us to say what's the next move. So that's why I'm glad we're having this discussion today.
And in response also, again, this is Jerry, Commissioner Ward. This is a way to describe an available tool that's available to the County of Mendocino to develop a dependent district benefit zone. And for example, the fire agencies reviewed and have looked at the county providing an office of a fire warden that would benefit all areas of Mendocino County, depending on how it's described in the layers of benefits that might be overlaid throughout the county of Mendocino. So there are sometimes discussions look at ways to provide a countywide provision of benefit. So, however, most benefit zones are small and directed to given purposes. So that would be something that would be reviewed, I believe, if there was ever an application for that level of service. And Commissioner Fornberger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Roth. To Mr. Dashiell from the county, I appreciate what you're saying about the accounting. And I would request that at the next meeting that you have that information available and have it distributed with the board packets prior to the meeting.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. The other part is, that to echo Mr. Ward's words, I had no idea what he was going to say, but he kind of took just about what I was going to say out of my mouth. At the last meeting, we did actually speak about this and what potential services might be offered. And this still really is not showing any intent or any thoughts even as to what the county is interested in doing, other than incorporating a huge area of the county into a single area, into a single control unit. And the other part of that was that we spoke about breaking up this large area into several zones of benefit, and that not every area necessarily needs all of the functions that that the CSA may put in, and it may be irrelevant for many of the ideas that they're doing. Also, the question of what happens when the CSA is put in, and say one of the smaller, say a fire district or a water district, is looking to expand their boundaries because of changes where people are living and how people are working. What does that do? And does that mean that there would have to be some sort of cooperation, or would that mean that even more services would be activated by the county at that time? And yeah, this I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but I think that we are moving forward without actually knowing where we're going, and what the end game actually is in this situation. So, thank you.
And I believe that would be driven by applications by the county to adopt any power under a CSA process. And that this exercise describes that is available as an option to the county to go through a parcel related process to deliver a described benefit to a given area. And looking at the water map, the unserved water area of the county of Mendocino, where, for example, new construction is consistently approved and requires generally a well provision of water to provide that service to that parcel. So it does show under the emergencies that we're now undergoing, both for fire and water, that there is potential in the future to find a benefit needed by the county of Mendocino to describe a benefit zone through an application for an applicable power. And this whole process is describing that is an available tool. And I think that's really the intent, since the state asked LAFCO to review whether this district was ripe for dissolution for unuse, that we go through this process to ensure the Board of Supervisors understand that this is a process they can go through to develop a higher level of benefit to its citizens depending upon need. And I'll let you go ahead and respond.
Yeah, with all due respect, I think you're missing the point of what I was trying to say, is that, this is an amorphous grab that with no actual direction. I think the county could have just been told, if that was actually what the state was saying, the county could have just been told that this is their option. We wouldn't have to go through this and actually enact it into an active CSA, giving them unfettered and uncontrolled access to all the unincorporated and unparsed out parts of the county. I don't think I think that this moving the cart before the horse, to borrow from Mr. Ward, I think is preemptive, and I don't think that it's time.
Go ahead, Commissioner McGorty.
Well, I see it a little bit differently. I just see it as a tool that's available. Again, it's got to go to a vote to the landowners, to the people who would actually get the real benefits. So it's not like we're dictating anything to anybody. I understand your concern about overreach, but I think that this is just kind of reaffirming that this is something that we can do, and it's not amorphous. I mean, the folks in Brook Trails certainly are pretty far along in the process. I think that the people in the East Hills are also ready to move when we have our study done. So I don't think that this is just sort of vague trolling for more control over the county. This is something we're trying to create a tool to help fund things that benefit that's specific to an area. It's one approach.
And I would note that this process would actually collapse a countywide service zone for CSA 3 down to what staff is recommending, just a couple areas of interest, with one potential active area that might apply for a activation of power. So the result is what you're asking for, is to collapse The staff recommendation would be to collapse a countywide CSA down to areas of interest as well as potential uses and given benefit zones rather than a countywide approach at this time. Go ahead, Commissioner Roden, you were first, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Farnberg.
Well, I was really gonna say what Glenn said, that it seems just like it's a tool. It's no grab by anybody. This is something that the people in this area want in order to be more, have more, increase their, access and egress from an area if there's a potential fire. So I don't see why it should be controversial. So that, anyway, I was just gonna affirm that.
Thank you. And after you speak, Commissioner, we'll go to the public for comments. Go ahead, Commissioner Farnberger.
Yeah, well, that's all great. I appreciate that. And
Oh, you muted yourself.
sorry about that. That's terrific. And I think that using those two as a pilot program rather than enacting anything further would be a better way to do this, because they are both defined, they are both small, and they both have an endpoint. And I think that is definitely the direction to go rather than any other forward motion on the CSA. And then use those as the basis, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what the actual constituency really wants as to whether or not anything else moves forward.
Thank you for that comment. And Commissioner Gonzalez, and then we'll go to the public.
I believe Commissioner Ward was also trying to raise his hand a minute ago, but I just wanted to kind of affirm what Mari had said, and that I don't see it as a controversial thing either. I see it as a tool, but I kind of agree with Commissioner Farnberger that see, folks that want to be married, we should be married and not push it on everybody. And if that's the intent, I am for that.
Commissioner Ward, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you. It could be problematic in the sense that there's a lot of rentals in Brook Trails, and maybe the rental people who can't vote for the $30 more property taxes, it may not pass. And what happens if it doesn't pass? Here we are talking about a zone of benefit that is not a done deal. So those are my concerns, that people may think it's important, but yet when it hits their pocketbook, they don't want to deal with it.
The process involves a protest hearing once benefits are described. And for example, in Brook Trails, there'd be no charge against unimproved properties, just improved properties. The protest process, if the protest succeeds, meaning a protest is lodged, it succeeds in the mail order ballot, it goes to the registered voters for a final decision. I believe also CSAs are often formed with a required vote to actually be the final concluding formation process, meaning a vote would occur that says yay, and then the actual power and district is formed. I believe that's usually a requirement of formation. Is that not so, staff?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. If the funding is not already established in processing the activation of latent powers application, then it would become a condition of approval. And if that benefit assessment is not approved by the voters, then they do not get the power activated. So it is a contingency based on the outcome of that Prop 218 process.
And I also believe that the application process can be paid for in a successful election, but not, in other words, costs can be recouped, but not in an unsuccessful election process. Is that also correct?
That is correct, yes.
And with that, we'll go to Commissioner Roden, and then we'll go to the public.
I just wanted to move staff's recommendation that we continue the hearing until the next meeting.
I will second Fromberg.
Motion made and seconded. We'll hold the vote. Well, actually, we'll go. Let's see. Well, let's go to public expression first. So we open this discussion to the public. Please raise your hand and you'll be recognized by staff. There's a call-in user that needs to be recognized. *6, I believe, will bring you unmuted.
Yes, unfortunately, we do not have the last 4 digits.
Well, they have unmuted, and let's see if we can't hear them. Go ahead and speak.
My name is Michael Schaefer. I'm just, an interested observer here. But one of the things I notice with LAFCO proceedings is you've spent now over $15,000 developing a sphere of influence plan. How expensive is it going to be each time one of these latent powers is applied for?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please do.
Certainly. So the current study that we are preparing is based on state mandate that we identify a sphere of influence for each agency under our purview. So the current costs are paid for by LAFCO directly. When the activation of latent powers applications come forward, those are actually basically the costs are paid by the applicant at that point. So those will no longer be costs absorbed by LAFCO. They will be paid for by the agency requesting the application process.
So do you have a ballpark for what the county would be spending each time they applied for a latent power to be activated?
Mr. Chair, I'll respond
Yes,
again if
please
that's
do.
okay. I do not have a cost because it really does depend on the level of detail involved in processing the application, the level of controversy involved. I'm trying to recall, EO Hinman, do you recall what just the deposit that is required for an activation of latent powers? I don't know off the top of my head.
Our fee schedule requires a $2,500 deposit for activating latent powers.
Okay, so it would be $2,500 to make the application, and then any costs beyond that would be billed at whatever amount of time was spent by staff.
And
Thank you.
And it should be noted that a CSA is a dependent district to the Board of Supervisors, who would act as the directors of that individual benefit zone district. So it is paid for, this process is paid for by the county share. So the current cost is covered by the county share that comes in to operate LAFCO.
So in relation to the current proposed sphere of influence, which you are postponing potentially to adopting in July, what is the timeline for when the first project would be before LAFCO for a latent power activation?
I believe there is a pilot program. Being a pilot program, I would say that answer is probably unknown at this time because they're working through issues to develop a 218 election and get it before the parcel owner for a vote. But I would certainly defer to any staff, county staff that wishes to speak to that.
Well, sure. This is Howard DeShiel, Mr. Through the Chair. The 60,000 we've spent already is the time we've spent developing a process, looking at how to get a election together. We were actually moving forward with that when we stopped, so LAFCO could do this process. So I guess it's like anything else. Hopefully, the first time costs the most, and then you learn and you do better the second time. But that's the money that the commission's asked me to account for, which I will the next meeting. But that's mostly been the time the staff has spent with consultants and attorneys and our own process of just putting together a ballot and a voter list was quite exorbitant up in Brook Trails. There's some 6,500 parcels. So if you had a smaller CSA like East Hills, which looks like it'll be closer to under 1,000, that'll probably be less expensive.
Thank you. And Commissioner McCourty?
So we wouldn't consider doing this as a board unless we thought it was really, really important. And already the emergency egress at Brook Trails was tested in one of the fires, and it worked out quite well. The idea of creating a one-way in one and one-way out, so that we had a way for emergency responders to get in without having to worry about evacuations went quite well. And that's why we're pursuing this, because we're very concerned with our kind of this urban rural interface of forest and residences. So believe me, we're not going to do anything unless it's really totally justified. This will not be frivolous. Our county can't afford to do frivolous things. We're so minimally budgeted that believe me, we're all very, very concerned about how we spend our dollars.
Mr. Schaefer, do you have further comment?
No, thank you.
Thank you for participating. Commissioner Ward, then we'll go back to public.
Yeah, Glenn, you mentioned there was a successful evacuation. Was that the one way out from just Sherwood all the way down to Highway 101? Is that what you're talking about?
Howard, you might be able to answer the question better than me, because I don't really know the inner workings of it, other than that it was considered to be a success.
Sure, through the chair, Howard DeShield again. So what they're referring to, Commissioner Ward, was the 2021, the Oak Fire. I can't remember what year that was, maybe 2020.
Right.
And that is where the Furco Road was used for the fire equipment to go in. That dumps them out at, Poppy, which is about 3.5 miles in. So the idea is the southern 3.5 miles was available for outbound evacuation traffic. So yes, that is pointed to as a success and exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
And I can, since I'm a resident of Brook Trails and was evacuated, I can tell you that the Governor 32 project statewide, the Furco Road received funding for CAL FIRE to develop Furco, which is a old lumber road coming from the airport area down to the 101 highway area, now County Road. It's down below where the mill site is. And that was utilized by CAL FIRE to bring in heavy equipment during the fire, and was a fuel break between Brook Trails and the Oak Fire, and was very much utilized. The proposal by the Firewise group, which is not the Brook Trails Board, but a separate citizens group, is to encumber parcels to fund the ongoing maintenance of two, potentially three, up to three private road routes into the district that can be utilized during evacuations where Sherwood Road is utilized by the citizenry to escape, while fire services and emergency services use ingress zones using the Furco and the other roads that would be maintained by a benefit zone. So that's a full description of that process. Let's go back to public. Is there further comment or questions by the public? Please come forward. You can just unmute yourself and start speaking. Just identify yourself if you wish to speak on this matter. We will be, there is a motion to continue this public hearing to the July 11th meeting, at which time further discussion can also occur. But if you wish to have any changes in the document at this time, this is the best time to speak. I'm not seeing anyone unmuting. So let's go to Commissioner Farnberger.
Yes, thank you. This is to E.O. Hinman. Since this is going to be forwarded, will this be redistributed for public input and for mailing and restatement within the newspapers?
No, when we continue to a time and place specific, the public noticing is not required. This document is posted on our website and with the agenda packet and is available for public review anytime.
So even though this, okay, I understand the spirit of the law.
Okay, I saw a thumbs up, but not a need to speak today. Commissioner Ward, we do have a motion to continue. On
And
the table.
I'll be supporting that as well. When will the residents of the Brook Trail area know about this benefit zone for property tax increase? When will they know that? I'm not sure anybody knows what's going on with that. They may hear about a road going out, but are they aware that they may have to pay a tax for it? And the other question I would have to bring up next time would be the Board of Supervisors is the district, the dependent district oversight, but yet it affects the majority of brook trails. How does that affect? They're making decisions for people who live in brook trails, which is governed by the CSD. So those are the questions I think need to be out there for the public to know about. That's all I had. Thank you.
A quick answer from staff is that there was already a mailing to the property owners throughout Brook Trails. That is the delayed 218 election that Howard DeShield spoke about. Because this MSR process was ongoing and needed to come in front of any 218 election process, we needed to actually come up with this process in an adopted MSR SOI. And then an application can be made for latent power. And that is why that was delayed until this process concludes. Does staff have any further comment on that? But there was a mailing to all property owners, Commissioner Ward. So they've already been noticed by mail by the county of Mendocino that this is a proposal.
I live in Brook Trails. I'm a property owner in Brook Trails. I don't recall getting that letter. So, and I look at my mail every day.
And we can have Howard speak to that, but it was noted it was a CSA3 mailing in the upper, the return envelope. And I received two mailings, both as a parcel owner and as a homeowner, because I do have a separate parcel. Mr. DeShield, do you want to speak to the mailing that occurred?
I'll check the mailing list and see if Commissioner Ward's on it. Maybe he's not.
Thank you. And do we have further comment from the public?
Chair Orth, if I may.
Okay, there is one comment coming in, but first go ahead, E.O. Hinman, and then we'll go to Ms. Alvarez. Okay.
I wanted to get back to Commissioner Frohnberger on his comment. If the commission wishes us to do further outreach, it would certainly be a simple process to send an email to our interested parties and agency email lists, notifying them that the public hearing is continued if that is the direction of the commission, and providing a link to the document on our website.
I would support that. I think that's a great idea, but I would defer to the rest of the board.
Okay, I don't believe we would need a motion for you to do that. I think that is a good practice. So unless I see a negative response from a commissioner, we should so direct that you do so. Okay, and with that, Tamara, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Orth. Sorry about the up and down hand. I didn't think my button was working. I just was going to refer to the comments about the notification in Brook Trails and the facts that, we have received substantial input from the public on the fact that they were notified about the CSA 3 property fee assessment election. So I heard what Howard said about checking on Commissioner Ward's mail. I think that's a great idea. But we certainly have seen a significant response from those who have received the notification about the property owner and private group led impacts to the Sherwood Firewise community CSA 3 zone of benefit proposal. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, do you wish to respond?
No, that's fine. I do get my water bill, so I'll have to check that.
Okay, it was a first-class mailing, so it
Okay.
came not in our card, but type mailing that both we use and you use for your operation.
I just want to make sure everybody's aware of it because, the meetings we are having are just on Zoom and, I want to be transparent on this and understand, let people know in Brook Trails that this is happening. So that's all. I just want to make sure everybody's aware.
And it was covered in the local newspaper at the time as well. We have a motion to continue this public hearing to the July 11th meeting. Does anyone wish to speak to that matter? And then we'll have a roll call vote and we'll close the public hearing. Matter of fact, we'll close the public hearing. Well, we won't close the public hearing. We'll vote, and that will be a vote to continue to the July 11th period. So I'm not seeing any other speakers at this moment in time. So go ahead, Clerk Meadows, and on the motion, let's do a roll call.
Yes, I noticed that our caller has his hand up still.
I don't
Is
think
that-
he lowered the hand, so I did
Okay.
ask him if he had further comment.
All right, great. Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
The
we-
motion passes unanimously.
And
We lost our fearless leader.
we will be available at that time to continue this discussion. And at this point, at 10:03, I'll close this public hearing, continue this public hearing now to the July 11th at 9 a.m. or soon thereafter. And with that, we'll move our agenda. We have another public hearing. This is for 5B, the final budget and work program for fiscal year 2022-23. And I'll turn this over to staff. Uma?
Thank you, Chair Orth. I am going to share my screen for a brief presentation. Okay, this is agenda item 5B. This is our public hearing for our final budget for fiscal year 2022-23. I'm going to briefly go over the budget development process, just as a reminder and information to new folks on the call. Our process consists of development of a preliminary budget, a proposed budget, and a final budget. The preliminary budget includes the budget, anticipated revenues, and development of a work program. We held a workshop with the Commission, a public workshop with the Commission on March 7th, where we received some direction to staff. We then noticed a public hearing, which was held on May 2nd, where the proposed budget was adopted and distributed to the agencies, the funding agencies, for comment. We received no comments to date. We scheduled the public hearing for today for the consideration of the final budget and work program And then upon adoption, it will be distributed to the funding agencies and the auditor controller for calculation of the apportionments to each agency and collection of fees. Our budget revenue consists of apportionment, primarily of apportionment fees, but also interest, any unreserved equity or cash balance from the previous fiscal year, and service fees, which will be new for this next fiscal year. The apportionment fees are established with the adoption of the budget. It is based on a state formula that specifies a 1/3 equal split between the county, the cities, and the special districts. The interest comes from our two bank accounts. One is our checking account at Sierra Savings Bank of Mendocino County, and one is our reserves account from the West America. We also do get some interest from the funds that are kept in the county treasury until we withdraw for use. The unreserved equity is a cash balance so unused budget from the previous fiscal year. And as I mentioned in April, the commission did adopt new service fees that will that include a portion of overhead as well as long-range planning fees. Those are applicable to the services identified in our fee schedule and will go into effect on July 1st. The budget also includes reserves and contingencies. Our operating reserves for the next fiscal year, which are 25% of our operating budget per policy, will be $65,950. Our legal reserves are set at $50,000 by policy and commission direction. And the unused cash is proposed for a work plan contingency, and we anticipate approximately $31,000. And again, that will be the cash balance from unutilized budget from this fiscal year and includes the work plan rollover. Our budget expenditures consist of staffing, which is our basic services account, services and supplies, and our work plan, which is our municipal service review and sphere updates. We are proposing to do 16 agencies in the next fiscal year. Expenditures also include application processing, which are paid for from the applicants themselves. With the adoption of the annual budget is an annual work program. The work program consists of basic services and the identified work plan for the fiscal year. The basic services covers everything from policy and budget development to our commission and committee meetings and to carrying out the direction of the commission. It also includes the day-to-day operations of the office and response to public inquiries. Again, the work plan is our tentative plan for the municipal service review and sphere updates for each fiscal year, and those are state mandated. There is some flexibility in the work plan in that it is dependent on the responses we receive from agencies. So we coordinate through the executive committee on any changes in the fiscal year that happen with the work plan. These are the identified agencies for our work plan for this next fiscal year. The City of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District were initiated this fiscal year, and our hope is to get through the administrative draft before the end of the fiscal year. So the amounts that are estimated in this budget are for what staff anticipates for completing the MSR sphere process in this next fiscal year. We also are proposing to do 2 municipal service review and sphere of influence updates for coastal water districts and inland water districts. The coastal water districts consist of 6 agencies and the inland water district of 8. So this is the recommended final budget. We are proposing that the apportionments remain unchanged from this fiscal year. So again, it would be $265,000 for this year, for this next fiscal year, and the overall budget at $263,800. So that will allow us to bring our reserves up to the targets. I will move to the next So our target reserves will be 115,000, which are almost 116,000, which is what we now currently have in our reserves. And the remainder of our budget, our cash unreserved equity, would be about 31,000. And again, that would go into our work plan contingency. So in summary, there are no changes to the adopted proposed budget, and there are no changes to the current apportionments. We received no comments prior to this meeting, no public comments. And so staff's recommendation is adoption of resolution 21-22-18, approving the final budget and work program for fiscal year 22-23, and directing the executive officer to distribute the final budget and work program to the funding agencies and the county auditor controller. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner questions? Commissioner Roden, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a question for Uma. And I'm sorry that I didn't make the last meeting when this was discussed more, but a quick question about the water districts in the inland area, Ukiah Valley area. So we have, money in the budget allocated for the MSRs and spheres of influence. But there's also discussions about consolidation. So can you talk a little bit about the coordination of those two efforts?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. And so we anticipate when we develop the work plan recommendation for the next fiscal year, we essentially look at the last date of the last sphere updates and count forward from there and try to shoot for the every 5-year mark to update those documents for the Cortez-Knox-Hertzberg Act. There is a lot of moving parts right now for the inland water districts. We're not sure where that's going to go, but we are coordinating with the State Water Board and also with city and IRWA staff. And so we'll continue to work with them. We'll also be doing outreach to each of those agencies, each of the water agencies. And so we'll have to be flexible as we move into that MSR sphere update process for them.
Go ahead, Commissioner Roden.
And then the time that you spend in working with the water board and the local agencies on potential consolidation, does that come out of basic services hours?
It does. Until we get an application,
Yeah.
it would come out of the basic services hours. As we move into the work plan development, it may be that some of that time gets allocated to our work plan
Right.
under the MSRs for those water agencies.
Great, thank you.
Further questions by commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Fonnenberger.
Thank you, Chair. Just to that last round of discussion, the moving forward of the account or the inland water agencies actually hasn't happened yet. So other than just attending meetings and keeping abreast of it, there shouldn't be really any monies spent, and there's not been any ask, as far as I understand, from LAFCO. So any spending between now and that point should be basically moot and or non-existent, and just part of staff time to attend meetings just to keep abreast of things. And there's no saying that anything about that will even move forward within the sphere of this entire budget, and it probably potentially won't. So I'm just to reassure Ms. Roden.
Further comments, questions by commissioners? We will be looking for 2 actions today. One will be to adopt resolution 21-22-18 with exhibits A and B, adopting the actual budget and work program. And the final action will be to direct the executive officer to transmit same to the funding agencies, the county auditor, controller, and others as specified under Government Code 56381. Any public members wishing to speak to this, please indicate by raising your hand or unmuting at this time. This is your public comment period for this budget process and work plan. Okay, Elizabeth,
Hi,
please.
everybody. Good morning. I just want to say great job, staff. It's beautiful, very inspiring presentation and putting together of the budget. And as a general manager of a special district, I feel like we are in very good hands. So thank you.
It's nice for EOs to praise each other. Budget work is a big part of your jobs, and I know it's a major work program that comes forward to your agencies. And thank you so much, staff, for this process. And the fact that we're not upping the charges to the 3 groups that pay for LAFCO operations this year. Commissioner McGorty, please.
I move the recommended action.
I second.
So that would be to adopt resolution 21-22-18 with exhibits A and B and direct our executive officer to transmit the final budget and work program. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so we have a motion and a second. Further discussion, any members of the public wishing to speak still?
I believe Russian River still has their hand up.
Well, I think she just hasn't lowered it yet. Beth, do you have any further comment? Oh, she lowered her hand. All right, thank you. Any public wish to speak to our budget and work program today? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead to the roll call. Clerk Meadows?
Commissioner, yes. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Clerk Meadows. Thank you, Commission. We're set for another year. It's always good to move forward. So with that action, I'll close the public hearing on our budget and move forward to, there are no workshop items today. Matters for discussion and possible action is a letter of support to the State Water Resources Control Board, which is item 7A, and I'll open that discussion now. Go ahead, Uma, and make the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Orth. At our May 2nd meeting, the Commission heard a presentation from Michelle Frederick from the State Water Resources Control Board on current state programs supporting water suppliers, potential funding, and coordination efforts in the Ukiah Valley with the intent of creating greater efficiencies of water service provision. Specifically, the City of Ukiah and the Upper Russian River Water Agency, or URWA, have been involved in discussions with the State Water Board and are interested in pursuing funding for potential consolidation of water services where appropriate. At the agency's request and to support those efforts, the Commission directed staff to bring forward a draft letter for consideration. The draft letter is included in your agenda packet as attachment 1 to the staff report and is located on page 110 of the agenda packet and was provided to both the City of Ukiah's Sean White and Water District's manager Jared Walker for initial feedback. Attachments 2 and 3 are letters of interest from the City of Ukiah and the URWA to the State Water Board requesting support for consolidation efforts. We received one public comment from the Flood Control District, and that is included as attachment 4. Staff is recommending the Commission approve the draft support letter or as modified and direct staff to submit that letter to the State Water Board. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions, commissioners, please raise your hand. Not seeing any questions coming forward. Let's go to the public for discussion. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the proposed letter, please indicate by unmuting or raising your hand. Commissioner Forberger, go ahead.
I'll wait until you close public session.
Okay. Any members of the public? Sage, go ahead. City Manager Ukiah.
Yes, thank you. Just to reiterate, the City of Ukiah agrees with staff recommendation. We look forward to the commission's support of this item. You already have IRWA and the City of Ukiah who have signed off on the letters, which are the two primary agencies involved, JPA and collectively the agencies involved with this request. It's great that we have collaboration and cooperation working together to support the water systems within the Ukiah Valley. We certainly hope that LAFCO takes an affirmative action in support of this letter. Thank you.
I look for a motion to approve the letter as written and then further discussion.
I move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, and Commissioner Fornberger, this would be a good time to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Orth. I still have to express my opinion that I do not believe that we should be earmarking certain things for promotion. I say that it is more to our point to support general ideas and concepts rather than trying to push an agenda or somebody else's agenda towards a specific project or situation. I am not going to support this as I did not before, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. This letter is supporting the State Water Board potentially funding studies within the Ukiah Valley for water service providers to look at potential consolidation. LAFCO, one of its roles is certainly to look at efficiencies of delivery of service. And so I think this is an appropriate letter. I will be supporting it. Further discussion from commissioners or the public? I'm seeing none. So let's go ahead and do a roll call. Clerk Meadow.
Okay. Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
No.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 6-1.
Thank you, commissioners. And moving on, thank you for the public who are listening to our meeting today for being here. And we move to items under 8, information and report items. And we start with the work plan, current and future proposals. Go ahead, EO Hinman.
Thank you, Chair Orr. This staff report starts on page 115 of your agenda packet. I'll give a brief update on the active proposals. We have the City of Ukiah annexation of city-owned properties, and staff has been working with County GIS and the Assessor and Auditor Controller's Office regarding the tax share agreement, and we continue to have coordination meetings with the applicant every other week to coordinate the overall project efforts. We are also processing the Elk Community Services District activation of latent powers for wastewater services. That also is going through the tax share negotiation process with the county, and that has been initiated. We're also working with them on a number of items to complete the application itself.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Okay, we'll go ahead. Commissioner Roden, you have a question for Uma. Go ahead.
I'm just curious about how that works. Why or if you know, why would the Elk Community Services District want to take control or take charge of this leach field? And I mean, what's the situation? And I'm just curious about that.
We do have Ben McMillan of the Elk Water CSD available. Ben, are you listening? And would you describe to Commissioner Roden the purpose of your application? If not, then we'll go to Ms. Hinman to describe.
As a reminder, it's *6 to unmute Ben, if you wish to speak.
Okay, we're not seeing him come forward, so
The application is
Go ahead.
essentially that the CSD has acquired ownership of the parcels that contain the leach field. And as part of that, the previous owner asked the CSD to take over the operation of that leach field. So we're working through the process with the district now.
And where does tax sharing come in a situation like this? Since it's not like you know, there's retail and I mean, that's the tax sharing I'm thinking of. Is
That's a
it
good,
just, yeah.
it's a good question. It's the tax share process in this case is expected to be a tax share agreement of no exchange of taxes. It is a service. Wastewater is a service fee, is a fee reimbursement type of service. So there is typically no exchange of taxes in a situation like this. But the Revenue and Tax Share Code does not provide any exemption to the process itself, so it has to be followed. And LAFCO cannot proceed with our process until that tax share negotiation is completed.
Thanks for that information.
Sure.
go ahead, Ms. Hinman, with your presentation.
Thank you. We still have a number of applications that are on hold. The City of Ukiah Detachment of Sanitation District served areas, and the city's pre-application for annexation of areas north of the city, including the Masonite and Brush Street Triangle areas. Also still on record is the Millview County Water District's pre-application for annexation of the Masonite properties. There's been no activity on either of those last three applications. We are anticipating a proposal from the City of Ukiah for annexation of the Western Hills properties. We expect that may be coming in this month, so may have more to report at our next meeting. There's also the CSA 3 activation of latent powers for the Sherwood Road, Sherwood Firewise Community Pilot Project. Our work plan summary is on page 119 of your agenda packet. We will, per the commission direction earlier today, we will be continuing the public hearing for County Service Area 3 to our July 11th meeting. We are working on the administrative drafts for the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District and the City of Ukiah, and our goal is to have a complete administrative draft by the end of June, and we hope to be scheduling a joint workshop in August. That is our intent, and we are making good progress. You can see on page 120 and 121 of your agenda packet, we've included the Gantt chart schedule as a reminder to the commission on our process for these two documents. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Funberger, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Roth. Question on a couple of these, they've been stagnant for an extended period of time. Could you refresh my memory as to how long we have to leave these on the books and continue to keep talking about them when there's no obvious movement from the petitioners, and when can we actually wipe these from our slate or ask them for actual action?
So a couple of years ago, the commission adopted an inactive applications policy. That inactive applications policy, I believe, gives 18 months for an agency to respond or make progress on the application. I have to refresh my memory on the policy language, but I believe it starts with a letter from our staff, to them notifying them that that time frame is coming up and giving them the opportunity to initiate further action on the application. With the city detachment of sanitation district lands, that one is the one that is the oldest, I guess, on the books right now. But there is, as we move into the MSR and Sphere update, I believe that will there will be some decision on whether or not to move that one forward. That is the hope as they work through their agreements for how services will be provided in the future.
So right now would be a good time to just kind of, since we're in a meeting and we have some of the primaries involved, pardon me, now would be a good time to let them know that, you know, there are time limits, and we hope that you're moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that. And further discussion on the work plan or current and future proposals with staff, from commissioners or the public. Any member of the public, just unmute yourself and come forward if you have questions on this matter. Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to 8B, correspondence. E.O. Hinman.
No correspondence to note.
And we'll move to a report on Cal LAFCO business and their legislative report.
Thank you. There are a number of documents in your agenda packet for this item. There's a notice for the 2022 Cal LAFCO conference, which is scheduled for October 19th to 21st in Newport Beach. Our budget allows for 4 commissioners to attend. The 2023 staff workshop will be held in Murphy's and is usually held in April. I have 2 legislative updates. SB 938, which is the bill that proposes to revise the protest provisions for LAFCO-initiated dissolutions to align with the standard protest provisions, has passed out of the Senate floor and is headed for the Assembly, so that one is still moving forward. Cal LAFCO has also started collecting data regarding their Government Code 56133, which relates to out-of-agency extensions of services, in support of San Diego LAFCO's legislative efforts to revise those statutes. In April of 2021, the Commission heard a staff report on the proposal and directed staff to relay preliminary support for those proposed revisions that are focused on clarifying the roles and responsibilities for making determinations on whether or not an extension is exempt from the statute. So it's to provide clarifying language, and we will have the opportunity, the Commission will have the opportunity in the future to express its support to the legislature. I think that's all I have for the Cal LAFCO update, unless there are questions.
Any questions? Just unmute yourself. Any questions from members of the public? Just unmute yourself, come forward. Seeing none, we'll move to committee reports. Were there any committee meetings?
Chair Orth, I think we skipped the executive officer's report, 8D.
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. It's an important report. Please move forward.
Thank you. We are sending letters to the applicants, notifying them of changes in the service rates that go into effect on July 1, and that was requested by the Commission at a previous meeting. We've been spending quite a bit of time responding to inquiries regarding reorganization proposals. We've had a couple, including options for providing new rec and park districts or provision of services on the South Coast, as well as extensions of sewer service to parcels outside the city of Fort Bragg. That kind of triggered some extensive file research on the Fort Bragg Municipal Improvement District and the sewer services, and we'll likely be bringing forward an informational report in the future on that. We're still monitoring the board chambers availability. As we discussed earlier, we can look into some options and we'll bring those back to the commission in July. I also wanted to just point out that our next meeting is on July 11th due to the 4th of July holiday. So please note that on your calendar, and I will send out a calendar invite after this meeting just to hold the date. And that's all I have for the executive officer's report.
Commissioners, any general questions of our EO at this time? Any public wishing to query our executive officer at this time on a matter not on today's agenda? I'm seeing none come forward. So again, the question, did we have any committee meetings to report on?
We had no committee meetings this last period.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go to commissioner reports, comments, or questions. Open forum, just raise your hand and please make your report if you wish to. Okay, I'm seeing no commissioner coming forward needing to make a report. Well, then that leads us to a motion to adjourn. We just need a motion, no second, no vote.
I move.
There it is. Well, this 10:36, not bad, folks. Hope to see you all on July 11th. Be well, keep yourself happy. Enjoy the 4th of July, all. And we'll come back and see each other on July 11th. Thank you much.